So, greetings everyone. Uh, Welcome to this little gathering in my temple, our temple. Here is Krishna and all his devotees, all the great saints. They are present here in Krishna's temple. So it's a good place to try to feel his presence, especially in these difficult times. We may be feeling somewhat anxious about the situation, to be seeing so much suffering in the world, may even disturb our faith. But in actual fact, there is an ocean of truth and an ocean of untruth. That is the position of the soul. He can either become illusioned, forgetful of the reality of his spiritual identity and relationship with Krishna, or he can wake up to that reality and live in that reality. So we can understand just from an intelligent point of view that why does God come to this world? Why do his saints come to this world? Why do they speak of the spiritual world? Why do they give us these holy books describing the spiritual world? It can only be because they are feeling great compassion for us, because we are in the material world, suffering in the material world, so much suffering as we can see these days. So in this way we can understand that they come to this world to help us. What does that mean? It means that they are kind, they are compassionate. We are individual souls. God is the Supreme Soul, Krishna, and we have our individual lives, but we are actually part and parcel of the family of Krishna. That is our real life. So they come to this world to remind us of that fact, and to take shelter of them. That is the fact. They are very great personalities, and we are very tiny personalities. We are spiritual, just like them, but we are very tiny, and they are very great in their power and all their opulent qualities. So our position is to take shelter of them. Our greatest enemy is our own minds. The mind may speculate, it may concoct all kinds of misconceptions and doubts. But Krishna is known as Madhusudana, the slayer of the demon of doubt. So at this time, especially with so much chaos and suffering in the world, our real hope is our faith, and we can simply spend, especially this time now when we are at home so much, to try to increase that faith, to make that faith stronger, firm. Shraddha is the Sanskrit word. And there comes a stage on the spiritual path called Nishtha. Nishtha means firm faith, unflinching faith, no doubt, beyond doubt, like that. So to be convinced that despite the suffering in the world, we can put our faith in God, in Krishna, that he is kind, that he is compassionate, that we need to take shelter of him. And what does that mean? Especially in this age, it means to take shelter of his holy name. All of the great scriptures speak of the holy name of the Lord. Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. So that name of God is not a material sound, and not like any material sound vibration. It is a transcendental sound, meaning it comes from the spiritual world. The holy name of the Lord is not from here. There's so many names of God: Krishna, Allah, Govinda, Gauranga, Christ, so many names, Jehovah, Adonai. But these names are not from here. They descend from the spiritual world. There's a very nice song from one of our great saints, Narottam Das Thakur. He sings O Golokera Premadan Harinam Sankirtan, that the holy name of the Lord has descended from Goloka, from the spiritual kingdom, and by chanting that holy name, Premadan, the wealth, the real treasure of the soul, divine love of God will awaken. Harinam Sankirtan, especially the congregational chanting, particularly in this age. By that method, the dormant love of the Lord will awaken. And when that happens, then all doubts are removed. All doubts are removed. We are not these bodies, we are the soul. The soul is eternal, and the soul has an individual loving relationship with the Supreme Lord. So these are the facts. This is the truth, as opposed to the untruth that even in this age people have a hard time believing that God exists. And if they do, sometimes their faith becomes weak, just like in the Second World War, I believe. The wives of the soldiers were praying to the Lord, please bring back my husband from the war, bring him safe home. But sometimes he didn't come home like that. So they lost their faith. So we need to understand that this is our business. Our business is to increase our faith so that the faith becomes firm, unflinching. And beyond that is love, prem, various stages on the journey of the soul. And especially now at this time we are confronted with these great challenges of death being all around us, so much suffering, where is God, like that. So to relieve us of our doubts, we need to take shelter of the holy name, especially of the Lord. Whether you choose to sing the Jesus mantra, mercy Jesus, 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 mercy, mercy, mercy Mary, mercy Mary, 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 mercy, mercy. The Jewish Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one, and so many other wonderful Jewish hymns. The Gauranga mantra, Gauranga, the golden avatar, the golden Messiah, who appeared just over 500 years ago, and as a result of his appearance, we are entering a golden age, as dark as this time may seem. The prediction is that his name will go to every town and village throughout the universe and bring in a golden age, an age of spiritual enlightenment. And this mantra, Shri Gauranga Jai Gauranga Gaur Gauranga Nam, Shri Gauranga Jai Gauranga Gaur Gauranga Nam, is a prayer to be engaged in his loving service, very powerful. And of course the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, the great chanting for deliverance. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this simple method of chanting the holy names can be done any place, any time. On your own, also, we chant japa, the personal chanting on the prayer beads. It can be done any place, any time. And of course, take advantage of the technology, MP3 players, CD players, and so forth to keep the mantra going. Because the mantra is God himself. This lovely little book here, this is Bhagavad-gita, a very nice translation by Vijayacharya. For those of you who don't know, Bhagavad-gita is the oldest book in the world. Gita means song, song of God. So this book especially helps us understand who I am. I'm not this body. Where do I come from? Why am I here? Why am I suffering? These are the 4 human questions. It helps us understand and answer those questions. And there's one verse particularly I want to share with you today. It's from the 7th chapter called Divine Communion Through Developed Spiritual Intelligence. And Krishna says to Arjuna, Arjuna is his friend and devotee. As most of you know who know Bhagavad-gita, this conversation took place on the battlefield of Kurukshetra in India 5,000 years ago. And the scene was a world war about to take place, much bigger in scale than any world war we know in our recent history. And the Lord Krishna and his devotee were assembled together on the chariot just before the war on the battlefield, and this conversation took place on the battlefield just before the war between Krishna and Arjuna. And Arjuna is being asked to fight with his family members. Can you imagine? Fratricidal battle for rulership of the world. Unfortunately, at that time, the atheistic, demoniac kings were trying to take control of the world. And they happened to be Arjuna's own family members, his cousins and uncles and so forth. These family members were opposed on either side, fight between family members. And Arjuna, of course, is a great warrior, but he became disturbed. Seeing his own family members on the battlefield that he was being called upon to fight, he became disturbed. And in fact, in the beginning of the conversation, he says to Krishna, I shall not fight. Now I'm confused about my duty. And then he says, please instruct me. So he's confused. He's a warrior, he's a prince, he should protect the innocent. But to be called upon to fight with his own family members is overwhelming him. And he's confused, and he says to Krishna, please instruct me. So this is a message for all of us, that our situation is perplexing. We don't want old age, death and disease, but these things are forced on us. What can we do? And then, if we're fortunate, we turn to God. Whether we know him as Allah, Krishna, Govinda, Jehovah, it's the one and same Lord with different names. But we may be fortunate enough to turn to him. And there's a morning prayer we say, Jayati Jananivas, Devaki Janmavadu Yadu. Jananivas in Sanskrit means the ultimate resort. When we've tried everything, in our minds, we may make plans, we speculate, let me try and find solutions and so forth. That is mental platform. But to surrender to God means I get off the mental platform and I think of him. I pray to him, I appeal to him, I meditate on him, like that. That's the spiritual, that's surrender. And this is what all the great sages and saints and incarnations and avatars say, that this is what we need to do. Surrender to God to solve the perplexing situation that we find ourselves in, this world of birth and death. What is the ultimate eternal solution is surrender to God, and that surrender begins with hearing about him, talking about him. So we can try to do more and more of that this time, especially in our homes now. Many congregational churches have stopped their worship, and therefore we are now at home. If we have a little temple or shrine or place of worship, that's nice. But either way, we should try to make this time more and more sacred by worshipping with our dear ones, our loved ones, regularly, day after day, like that. Turn our home into places of worship, really. That's what they're meant to be anyway. They belong. The home belongs to Krishna, everything belongs to God. So anyway, this is the challenge now at this time. And before we can help others, we must help ourselves individually. That means we must cultivate spiritual strength ourselves individually, especially by this hearing and chanting process, hearing about the Lord and chanting or singing his holy names, very powerful. And in this way our doubts can be removed, and also we become more and more, how can we say, confident that our future is guaranteed. We are on the way home to God, like that. We're on the way home. We just need to stay on the path, and that is our ultimate destination. Param Gatim is the ultimate destination, the end of all suffering. The end of all suffering is that spiritual destination. So I'd just like to read this verse from Bhagavad-gita, 7th chapter. The Lord of all opulence then said, by hearing carefully from me, with your mind and heart fully attached to me, you will experience divine communion in my shelter and be entirely freed from all misgivings and doubts. So a very special, powerful verse now at this time again. So many people with misgivings and doubts, those that are on the spiritual path even. But Krishna is saying, giving a very specific instruction, that if we hear from him carefully, attentively, what does that mean? We chant his holy names, as we said, different mantras, sing the hymns, read the books, whether it be the Bible, the Old or New Testament, the Quran, the Bhagavad-gita, and so forth. But we read these books with attention, carefully, regularly. And in this way, our minds and hearts become more and more attached to God like this. The attachment is necessary to begin to feel that God, Krishna, is my intimate friend and protector, and I'm feeling more and more attached to him like that. And how does that happen? By this regular hearing and chanting. In your own home, you don't have to have a big opulent temple anywhere, any place, anytime. And then Krishna says that if you do this, and you do this attentively, regularly, what will happen? You will experience divine communion in his shelter. So this communion, although this book, Bhagavad-gita, of course, is the Krishna Bible, so to speak, that the word communion is very prominent in the Christian literature. So divine communion, what does that mean? To feel oneself in the presence of the Lord and to feel oneself fully sheltered by his mercy, like that. To feel that I'm safe, even in the midst of this chaos and this doom and gloom that we see, the suffering and death of this virus. Despite that, to feel that I am actually safe. I'm with God. He's with me, and he's taking care of me. He loves me at every second, at every moment, at every step. He's guiding and protecting me like that, even in the greatest danger. Just reminds me of that lovely psalm from the Old Testament, David. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. So beautiful. The shadow of death, I fear no evil, like that. So no fear. This is reality. It is not bravado. Sometimes we see people walking around with a t-shirt, no fear. But that is not possible, and this one actually is on the spiritual platform and can experience that I am fully sheltered by the Lord. And we will feel that shelter, especially in this time, in his name. This is a very, very deep, wonderful subject, that the Lord and his name are the same. They're not different. Just like in material world, the name of something and that thing are different. Just like if I'm thirsty and I just sit here and say water, 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 the sound vibration, is that going to quench my thirst? No. So the name and the substance are different. But we hear from the ancient scriptures that the holy name of the Lord is not material. It is what's called absolute. What does that mean? It means that the Lord and his name, his form, his qualities, activities are all the same. That means that when I hear and chant the name, especially with a surrendered heart, I will feel that God, Krishna, is sitting right next to me. Full protection. That's a developed stage, but that's the reality. So we need to work toward that level of realization. This is the ultimate, as Krishna says, the end of all suffering. The end of all suffering. I remember my Guru said, what is the proof that God is kind? And he said that if we understand that everything comes from God, including kindness, and I'm a little bit kind, every one of us is a little bit kind. Where does that kindness come from? It comes from God. So he must be kind, yeah, like that. We, just like children, sometimes they choose to misbehave. They choose to misbehave. And very often as a result of that misbehavior, they get into difficulty and suffer. But does the father want that? The mother, do they want that? No. They want the children to be cooperating very nicely with the parents, with love, and be safe like that. But if they choose not to, that is not the parents' responsibility. They're very sad, of course, when that happens. And Krishna is very sad to see us in our distressed condition. But unfortunately, we have made, how can you say, choices that have been not good for our soul, like that. And we are suffering now. But Krishna's compassion is always there, and he's always trying to bring us back to him, like that. To bring us to our senses. So bringing us to our senses means give up this idea that I'm independent, that I'm God, and realize that you are a servant of God, loving servant. This means coming to our senses. And when that realization is heartfelt, then we can begin to experience our real life of peace and joy and freedom from suffering. So we would encourage everyone simply to chant the holy names, whether you from the Jewish, Christian, whichever tradition, Muslim, chant the holy names now. If you're at home with your loved ones, chant with them. Read the holy books. Plain living, high thinking, as the Vedas say. Plain living, high thinking. This is human life. And this virus is forcing us to do that, which in one sense is very good, because now we are beginning to realize what is our real need. Our real spiritual need, our real soul comfort comes from our spiritual life, not material life. There we will find safety and peace and love and all these things which are priceless, which you cannot buy. I heard today of the CEO of Amazon, I forget his name. He's worth billions and billions of rand, can you imagine? Just recently married to his wife 25 years and now getting divorced, you see. All that money, does it bring him happiness? No, no. So happiness comes from within, as it says in Bhagavad-gita. So may I wish you strength and faith during these times, and hope and confidence that actually nothing will prevent us from making progress on the spiritual journey. Nothing material, as it says in Sanskrit, ahoitaki apratiyata, nothing material can stop the progress of the soul on the spiritual journey, can prevent the practice of devotional service to the Lord. Nothing material. So, however gloomy and materially things may seem, nothing can stop our spiritual journey. It depends simply on our own sincerity. That's the only qualification. We don't need any money, any big books that we are so studying so much. Nothing material. Only that sincere desire that let me find God. Let me get connected. Let me stay connected with God. Let me have no other desire except that. This is all we need. So please take shelter of the holy name, the holy books, this lovely book, Bhagavad-gita. You should perhaps try to get a copy. A chapter a day keeps illusion away, as my Guruji said. So this is the time to intensify our spiritual practice, and in this way begin to feel more and more sheltered, and simultaneously having our doubts removed, So I wish you well on the spiritual path, and thanks for listening. Jai Guranga, Hare Krishna, Shalom.